So what I want to show today is really how easy it is to get started with Amazon S3 vectors with Spice. And you've probably heard about vector search and different types of search and query, and maybe it has seemed like a lot. And with Spice, you can really just get this running in a couple of minutes. So I'm going to demo this in Spice Cloud, but everything I show today, you can run self-hosted, you can run your laptop, fully open source. You don't need to use our cloud, but this makes it very easy to just show it up and running. So the way that you configure Spice is using this spicepod.yaml file, and you can kind of think of this as like a package.json file from a Node application if you're familiar with that. And it's just a way to configure different data sets and models within Spice. So the first dataset I'm going to show here is a dataset that's using some CVEs, which are security updates or bulletins from the Nginx project. And this data is stored within Databricks. And to be able to access this data, all we have to do is say from Databricks, the table that I want to get, and then just pass in a couple of access tokens. And then from there, we can deploy this out into the cloud. And then we can start querying on this data. So here, it's the same project here. I'm just using a different tab. And I can now run queries against that data. And you can see that I've got very fast query across that data within the platform here. And you can kind of see that I've got this Nginx data set here with different columns in it. So how might we use this data set with Amazon S3 vectors to do vector search? So I'm going to build this up incrementally so you can see how to actually do that. So the first thing that we want to do is, this is just a small data set, so I wanted to demo it here. But you might have a lot of data, thousands, millions, billions of rows. And Spice can handle that, and it can make it consistently fast. So the first thing I'm going to show is how do we actually just accelerate this data and make it fast? And we can do this by very, very simply adding this acceleration piece of config here. And what we're saying is, like, we want to accelerate this data and we want to use DuckDB. And so now I can just click Save and Deploy. That's going to update the running Spice instance within Spice Cloud. And once that's deployed, it's deployed here. And then if I come across to here, you can see that it's deployed out this new instance and it's running. If I want, I can go see the logs for this new instance. And then when I come back to my query now, here, I can do query, and you can see that this query is even much, much faster. So it went down about 6 times faster from about 1 second to about 100 milliseconds. And you can imagine if you're doing much larger data sets, you get this incredibly fast query within this accelerated database, which is DuckDB. And Spice manages all the work to keep that data updated for you to make it really, really fast. So the next thing I'll show is just how easy it is to start adding vector search to this. So I will add in another piece of config for Amazon S3 vectors. And all I have to do is put this new section here. And we're saying we want to use vectors and enable it to be true. And we're going to use engine S3 vectors. And we'll give some parameters to it to connect over. So the index name and the region and a couple of secrets to be able to go and connect to this. And Spice will do, Spice Cloud will manage all the secrets for you automatically, so and securely. So if I come across here, then you can see I have configured all my secrets here in advance so that we can connect over to these data sources. So yeah, all I have to do now is that's how I configure vectors, and then how do I want to actually enable vector search on a particular field within my data set. I just have to add a couple of more pieces of configuration. So the first thing is Amazon S3 vectors is a large vector query store that's built on S3 for very large scale vector search. And what you have to do to be able to use it is you actually have to vectorize your data first to be able to put it in there. And normally that's a whole process, but within Spice, what you can do is simply just add in what we call an embeddings model, where we can connect over to different hosted embeddings models or load your own. So this could be OpenAI, it could be Bedrock, it could be any other model from Hugging Face. And again, we'll connect over to this and simply just adding a couple lines of YAML here, we can add an embedding model into the application. And the next thing that I have to do is simply just connect that embedding model over to the data set. And we can do that by adding in this piece of configuration here, which just says, hey, in the column of CVE data that's in my data set, I want to use the Bedrock embedding Titan model to vectorize the data. And then I want to use this ID as the row lookup. So now I can click Save and Deploy, as I did before. And if we come across to the instance here, it will load up. And over here in deployments, it's actually deployed here now. And so we'll come across here and it's loaded up. And so I can actually see in the logs here that it has automatically vectorized this data and updated the S3 vectors index for query. Without me actually doing any additional thing, there's no additional code to run, it's just this configuration. And so now if I come across to my query, then I can start running vector search queries on this data. And that's really as simple as using this vector search function that's available within Spice called vector search here. And I'm saying I want to run vector search on this data set that I've just configured called Nginx CVE, and I want to search for the term SSL. And so I can run that. And you can see that I've got very, very fast sub-second vector search query across this entire data set and very fast query without having to do any additional work. And so now I've got vector search running super, super fast and easily. I might want to do some additional things. If I have a much larger data set, I want to start doing some filtering on that. So I'm going to come across here now and add one more thing to the Spice pod where I can now start adding additional filtering to this configuration. And so now I've added a couple more columns and I'm saying I want to be able to make these columns filterable. And then in addition, I might want to actually use this data within my LLM model. And so I'm going to add in one more piece, which is a model from OpenAI. And so I'm going to say, very simply, add this additional configuration from OpenAI. I want to use GPT-4. And I want to, this tools auto will mean that this model can now use that vector search. So I'm going to go click Save and Deploy here again. And that's going to take maybe just another couple of seconds to go and deploy and run again. So we'll just wait for a few seconds and we'll come back over to our interface here and run a couple more queries before we finish up. So the first query here, once that's deployed, we'll just make sure that it's running here. Okay, so it's up and running. So now I can come back and I can now do things like where the assigner or the owner of this is Red Hat, and I can do additional queries on it to filter it. So now I can do even larger scale vector search across bigger data sets because I can filter down that data and run vector search over it. And you can see this is still incredibly fast, sub-second. And then I might, do different parameters in here to make this even faster. And just to show you what's going on behind the scenes, what we can do is what's called an explain plan, which allows you to see what's actually going on. So if I do that same query and I say, do this explain format in front of it and run the query again, then here we can actually see what's going on. And this looks maybe a little complicated at first, but what I want to show you is it's running this query and it's doing all this compute. And then here down at the bottom, it's pushing this query into the S3 vectors service itself. So you didn't have to do any additional code to make all this work. You just had to do the configuration, and now you get this large-scale vector query using S3 vectors, and we do all the work to push that query into the S3 vector service itself. In addition, we wanted to do this filtering. And remember that we had accelerated this in DuckDB, and you can see here it actually pushed down some of that filters into DuckDB. And up here, it's actually taking the S3 vectors results and the DuckDB results, combining them together to produce that final very, very fast query and search query across the data set. And so finally, the last thing I'll show is we had connected this over to a model. And so now, again, without any additional work, I can now start using that vector search query within my LLM model. And so just to start with, I can say, hey, what data set do you have access to? And it immediately knows I have access to this CVE dataset. And so I might be able to say, describe the dataset, and it knows things about the dataset. And then I could say, search over the dataset for SSL. And again, it will automatically know that it has access to vector search. It can do a search across that data set, get the results back, even give me the scores for it in terms of the ranking scores of how they rank. And you can see all this was incredibly fast and without additional work. And finally, all of this within the Spice runtime is traced. So we can see what's going on in this observability section here. And so we can see that we did an AI chat here and we said search over the data set for SSL, and we've captured all of the trace so that you know what's going on in the background. So you can see we started with an AI chat that went and did this list data set, so it knew what data set it has access to, and then it did this vector search on the term SSL to be able to get those results back, bundle it all the way back into their chat completion, and give you the AI answer back to return your search query. And you can kind of see the whole trace line of what it did here at the end. So hopefully you can see in just a couple of minutes how easy it is to go from basically nothing to connecting over to a data set using this very simple YAML configuration from Databricks. And again, this could be any other data set, MySQL, Postgres, Snowflake, Parquet files in S3, CSV files in S3, and add acceleration to make it super fast, add vector search to make it to provide similarity search over that data set, make it filterable, and then connect it over to a model to produce that AI answer.